Good afternoon. I want to thank everyone for being here today on this very special occasion. I'm JP Murrieta, the Sports Information Director with the NMAA, here on behalf of Executive Director Sally Marcus. We would like to welcome everyone to today's introduction to the NMAA's Hall of Fame class of 2023. Wanted to give you a little bit of background about this honor. The NMAA Hall of Fame was established in 1976 and is comprised of an elite group of more than 100 accomplished individuals who have made significant contributions to interscholastic athletics and activities here in New Mexico. To be considered for the Hall of Fame, nominees must show great support of the NMAA's philosophy and objectives. They must have a combination of involvement in formulating regulations and procedures for various interscholastic education programs, and they must have a minimum of 25 years of service, 20 of which must have been here in New Mexico. Nominations are screened by the NMAA Hall of Fame Selection Committee, which consists of current and former leaders within interscholastic athletics and activities. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about today's honoree. He will come up to the podium and speak, and then at the end of the press conference, he'll be available for one-on-one interviews if needed, and I'm sure plenty of photos, Joe. Our inductee this year is the man sitting to my right, Mr. Joe Butler. Joe Butler is the 115th inductee into the NMAA Hall of Fame. With a career in education that spanned nearly 30 years, he devoted his career to serving the youth of New Mexico. Butler graduated from St. Michael's High School, as I'm sure everyone in here in this room knows, and was a member of the basketball, baseball, and tennis teams. He furthers his education at the University of Notre Dame, where he was also a member of the Fighting Irish baseball team. Butler began his career in education back where it all started, at St. Michael's High School, as a classroom teacher from 1986 to 2001. Butler also served as athletic director and a coach from 1986 to 1998 for the Horsemen. His coaching duties included 12 years as the varsity tennis coach while assisting in other sports, volleyball, softball, baseball, and basketball. Did I get all those? All right. Then in 1998, Butler took on a new role as the school's Director of Development and Properties Manager. In June 2005, Butler assumed the athletic coordinator role at Santa Fe High School. He then took the athletic director's position at Moriarty High School in July of 2007, where he oversaw the athletic programs for the high school and 2 middle schools. Butler then moved to the New Mexico Activities Association in July of 2012. Their loss was our gain. He spent 6 years as an assistant director overseeing the sports of soccer and tennis and the activities of mock trial and one-act production. He was also responsible for NMAA Hardship Eligibility Committee and in 2017 implemented the statewide athletic director education and mentorship program. In 2018, Butler retired from the NMAA. Following his retirement, Butler continued to give back as a consultant for the New Mexico Athletic Directors Association, as well as the NMAA and its member schools. He also helps as site manager for the annual state tennis championships every May. Butler earned numerous honors during his career, including the NMAA Distinguished Service Award, the Mel Otero New Mexico Outstanding Sportsmanship Award, the NMAA Interscholastic Educator of the Year for the state of New Mexico in 1996, among many others. Over his career, Butler served on several committees, boards, councils, and foundations, including president of the NMAA Foundation. Butler and his wife, Chella, have 4 children, Casey, Leslie, Joey, and Jessica, as well as 9 grandchildren. He resides in Santa Fe. Ladies and gentlemen, it is truly my honor to introduce a man who is literally in a class by himself. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podium the newest member of the NMAA Hall of Fame, Mr. Joe Butler.
Thank you, JP, and Thank you, everybody, for being here. This is such a special day for me. It's actually a humbling experience, but it's also a very happy day, and it's great to be here with so many people that influence my career and who I consider friends. And I want to begin by thanking Sally and NMAA staff, JP, Dusty, and Chris in particular for all their hard work in putting this together. Like I said, this day represents 30 plus years of a lot of dedication, a lot of hard work, and but as I tell my wife all the time, I had lots of days where I was exhausted coming to work, but never a day where I didn't want to get up and come to work in interscholastic education. So I think that's really important. I wanted just to give you a little background. Well, I'll start by doing this. My 6 years at the NMAA were just a terrific experience, and there was only one thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way the whole time, and that was the fact that any time I would get up to make a presentation to the board or to another group, I would be accused by my colleagues of the NMAA of being long-winded. And so as soon as I would get up to make the presentation, I'd see Dusty and Scott and JP, they'd get on their phones, and Tyler would be reading the newspaper, and Sally would be in the back. And after about 2 minutes, she'd be looking at her watch. And then she'd start, tapping her watch, and I'd just kind of ignore her. And then she'd give me that icy stare that all of you from the NMAA office know well, the one that's caused global warming, that's melted the ice, the polar ice caps, that same one. And so it's not the smile that you see on her in the back of the room right now. But anyway, nonetheless, so it bothered me enough to say, well, it's probably some flaw in my character. I really kind of need to look into what, causes this long-windedness on my part. And I thought back to my childhood and to my mother and my father, and my mom and my dad were, as most parents were in that day, and people like Dan Salzwedel in the back can relate to this, I'm sure, with his parents, but they were pretty strict. And my mom was more the disciplinarian than my dad, and her one rule for her children was don't speak unless you're spoken to. And my dad's, he was more the comedian and a little bit easier going. He had the same message, but in a different way, and he'd always tell me, children should be seen and not heard. So I grew up for most of my life being kind of quiet and kind of reserved and really kind of shy. I didn't have a lot to say because I was never given the opportunity. So I think I'm making up for that, and so that's kind of my excuse. It's either that or all the long lectures I got from Mr. Salzwedel in the back all those years ago that, and looking at his style that made me ramble on a little bit. But nonetheless, I hope you guys will go with me today and give me a little extra time, since I'm honored to be the only inductee this year, and there's so many people that I'd like to recognize that have been so instrumental in my career all the way along. Just a little background, I was really late getting into education and interscholastic athletics. From the time that I was a little boy, my one big goal in life was to attend the University of Notre Dame. It was kind of a family lineage. I had an uncle and a cousin that had attended, and I was one of those, we call them Notre Dame diaper kids, that I was in Notre Dame diapers from the time I was little, and so that became my goal all the way through school, and I had the honor and the privilege of being accepted there and attending for 4 years. My sophomore year, it came time to select a major. I always felt like I was so influenced by the Christian brothers at St. Michael's and by my teachers at St. Michael's and my coaches that I always kind of knew that that was really what I wanted to do with my life, not realizing that the University of Notre Dame did not have an education major. And so I was faced with the choice of making a choice for my major field of study my sophomore year, and I made that choice with my parents and with a very helpful friend who advised me, and I chose business and accounting, and that sort of took my career in a different direction for about 12 years. So it wasn't until one summer when Chella and I were talking that I was making lots of money, but I was not feeling very fulfilled in what I was doing, that we decided to kind of do a complete pivot, and we both left our jobs, and we both went back and got our teaching certifications and got into education, and so that was a little bit down the road. But I was fortunate because my teaching credential was in business, of all things, and very few schools have business programs, and so I wasn't even sure what I'd be able to land. I had done my student teaching at St. Michael's with a wonderful brother named Brother Peter Dudenheffer, who was also the tennis coach of the school. And it just so happened that summer, after I finished my student teaching and became licensed, that the athletic director's position opened up at St. Mike's. I always thought I'd enter education as a teacher and a coach, and I had 3 or 4 sports that I felt like I could coach in and learn, and because I had background in those particular sports. But when the AD job opened up, I took it because it was a paycheck, and I had a teaching position because St. Michael's had a business program for me to teach in, so I became a full-time teacher and a full-time athletic director. I think fully intending that I'd segue into coaching as soon as possible. But one of the things that came to me in that first year of being an athletic director was the fact that it really made me think I can coach a sport and impact those kids on my sport, so 12 to 15 kids depending upon the sport, or I can become an athletic director and make that my career and influence kids in the 20 sports that I'm overseeing. And that's what I chose. I mean, I saw a real need in education for people of character and for people that would that had great passion for what they were doing and provide opportunity for kids that really needed that, and that's what I chose, and then never looked back. I was fortunate enough to be able to coach a little bit along the way, because in those years, and Dennis Casados can tell you this, you did everything in those days. It wasn't just one thing, and so full-time teaching, senior class sponsor, in charge of graduation, athletic director, coaching 2 sports, and what have you. So that's just a little background on that, on my educational experience. I want to start by, and like I said, it's because of the 80-hour weeks that I spend on a regular basis. It was a real sacrifice on my family's, my wife's part, for us to really kind of manage that, and I really want to start by thanking. I want to start with my family first, because after all, I wouldn't be standing here if it were not for them. And my family recognition starts with one person, and that's my wife, Chella. And I think most everybody here knows Chella. And if there's anybody that's a Hall of Famer that's here that probably should be standing up here, it's her, because I took a lot of my cues from her. For those of you that don't know, she's 30 plus years as a head volleyball coach, right at 400 wins. And what the one thing that always struck me about her is her perspective on what this stood for and what this was all about. For her, it was never about wins and losses. It was never about state tournament or state championships, although she did win one along with our daughter Jessica. It was always about character building. It was always about creating good citizens of the world, and her program was always value-based. And that's really what separates interscholastic athletics from club sports, which in my mind are ruining our world. That was where her focus always was, for all of these years. And there was never any talk in our household about college scholarships, and that's really what high school sports ought to be. It shouldn't, and unfortunately nowadays it's become about nothing but that, and that's too bad. But she's really the person that gave me that perspective, because I grew up, I was a competitive guy, and I wanted to win and I wanted to create championships, but I really sort of took my cue from her and just from watching her and her program. And there were times where, I'd tell her, well, how come you're not doing off-season programs? Well, her focus was, I want to turn those kids loose at the end of my season to be able to play basketball, to be able to play spring sports, to be able to do activities and do things with their family. I'll take them during the season, and that's all I need. And so that's the first person I want to recognize. But I've got 4 terrific kids. Casey and Leslie and Joey and Jessica, all 4 are here. Raise your hands, guys. All 4 of them are here. And one of my goals for them was always I wanted each of my kids to play, obviously to play sports, to be involved, but I also wanted them to be in one individual and one team sport, because I wanted them to have the experience of learning to collaborate with others and work together, losing with class as a group, but I also wanted them to have the individual experience, to have to sit across the tennis net from one person and have nobody to blame but themselves and nobody to take responsibility to. So Jessica was a tennis player, Leslie played tennis and did some track and field. Casey was a tennis player, and Joey was a track athlete here, so I think they had a really good, well-rounded experience in both the team and the individual. A little bit of success too, and I want to brag on my kids just a little bit, because they did fantastic. We were really a volleyball family, and that really started with Chella. Let me mention my grandkids first. I have 9 grandkids, and I think we've got 5 or 6 of them here today. A couple of them on the way that haven't quite got here yet, but and they're already far surpassing anything that I've accomplished, and so we're really proud of them. We've got a grandson, Leslie's and Nathan's son, playing professional hockey, and we've got 2 graduating from college this year, and Shay, who's back in Albuquerque after being in D.C. for many years, and was a terrific volleyball player at Hope Christian High School. But between the 9 grandkids and the 4 kids in Chella, we have 7 state volleyball championship game experiences, 5 state championships. Jessica has an individual state championship in tennis. And then Joey, who is a terrific high school athlete, has numerous state championships in both football and in track and field as a coach now at St. Michael's High School for the last 10 years. And so I just couldn't be more proud of my grandkids. So some other people I want to recognize, and I start with the individuals, and unfortunately they're not here today, but start with the Christian Brothers at St. Michael's, who gave me my start. They mentored me as a teacher and gave me the opportunity to really start my career off there. I went into my athletic office, and I know Dennis knows this person, but I took over from a gentleman named Al Salazar, and there had been a bit of a rift between Al and the administration. So when I first was shown to my office, I started going through file cabinets and drawers, and everything was completely empty. And this was about June of the year 1986, and I had no idea what it was like to be an athletic director and everything. So the first 2 people that I thought about calling were Dennis Casados. Dennis, I think everybody knows, raise your hand there, Dennis. And Dennis was the athletic director for Santa Fe Public Schools. And what a lot of people didn't know about Dennis is Dennis and I were in high school, were bitter rivalries, we're rivals, and he was a terrific basketball player and baseball player. I went on to play basketball at New Mexico State University and played for those hated demons from St. Mike, from the St. Mike's perspective. And what he denies to this day, but it's the absolute truth, is when he was a 15-year-old and I was a 13-year-old in Babe Ruth baseball, coming up, my first time at bat, I faced Dennis on the mound. The very first pitch, he hit me in the batting helmet. And he denies it to this day. But I've got the permanent memory loss and damage to prove it. But Dennis was just an incredible resource for me as far as just showing me the real basic ropes in terms of what to do, how to develop schedules and evaluate coaches and so on and so forth. And I took advantage of that. The other person that I wish was here today, and he was a terrific athletic administrator for about 3 or 4 decades, and that's Ron Porterfield. And Ron is actually in Phoenix today. His son, Ron John, is the head trainer for the Los Angeles Dodgers, and is receiving an award as a head trainer from the Baseball America organization today. But Ron was a terrific help as well. And the third person that was really instrumental for me was Mr. Dan Salzwedel in the back. And Dan was a longtime executive director of the NMAA, and I reached out to Dan right away, and I was thinking about sometimes the symbolism in standing here today. The first time I met Dan Salzwedel was in a building about, 300 or 400 yards behind us here, Dan? The NMAA in those years was housed in what I guess you'd call it modular housing, or maybe it was kind of a mobile home out behind us here on a vacant lot on the other side of the baseball field, and that's when I first met Dan. And that was before they moved to the beautiful building that they're in now. And he became sort of a professor to me, to give me the ins and the outs of the NMAA, but more importantly, really taught me about the perspective that I needed to have as an athletic director and as a leader in the schools, and really what the kids of that era needed as far as leadership. And so I forever thank him for that, and for his guidance in that. I had some terrific colleagues over the years that I had the opportunity to learn from, people like Cooper Henderson from Artesia, Taryn Batches from Albuquerque Academy, Tom Manning, who became Santa Fe High athletic director and was at St. Michael's for many, many years. The legendary Buddy Robertson and Scott Evans from Albuquerque Public Schools spent a lot of time with me and helped me quite a bit. And special recognition, I want to recognize Mark Ducharme. And Mark, I met as Mark was came on board when I was at Moriarty, was an assistant principal at Moriarty, and I got to know his family there. We ended up when he took the job at Santa Fe Public Schools. He's now the athletic coordinator for the entire district there. Now we're neighbors, and so in at least maybe 20 years ago, I could throw a tennis ball from my yard to his. I can't do that anymore, but maybe with my racket I can hit it that far. But Mark was instrumental, whatever it was that caused him to actually write the nomination for me this year, and I'm so grateful for that, Mark, and for our relationship. I had some terrific support staff over the years, and not only at the NMAA, but I had two of the best athletic administrative assistants that I could ever imagine have, and one is Luann Padilla in the back in my 2 years at Santa Fe High School, and the other one, with no slight to Luann, but the best athletic administrator in the state of New Mexico, Linda Apodaca from Moriarty. They were just terrific. Also here today is my longtime athletic trainer, Matt Vasquez, who went with me from Santa Fe High and then to Moriarty, and Matt's still doing athletic training up in the northwest part of the state. And I had the opportunity to work with some unbelievable coaches over the years. Gosh, too numerous to mention, but two that I really want to point out that are here today, and I'm just really proud of them both. And one was a young man that I gave his first coaching job to. He's now the head basketball coach at Artesia High School and has been for about a decade right now. I saw him yesterday before his game against Valley, and he said, "Coach, I'll see you tomorrow." And I said, "I hope you won't see me tomorrow." I said, You'll be playing right now." And they ended up losing a really tough one-point contest in the last couple of seconds of that game. But Mike Mondragon is here with me. And then a person, if you go to your dictionary when you get home and you look up the words interscholastic coach/educator, you won't see any wording. You'll just see a picture of Joe Bailey. And Coach Bailey and I think, if I recall right, which I don't recall much anymore, but the first time we met each other, we were on opposite sides of a basketball game, a JV basketball game, when I was coaching at St. Mike's and Joe was in Moriarty. And little did I know that I'd have the opportunity to work with him for 6 years at Moriarty. He is just the epitome of what a coach educator should be, a quality classroom teacher. For 40 years at Moriarty High School, Joe coached 3 sports. He coached football, he coached basketball, he coached boys and girls track. And Joe, much like my wife Chella, the focus was always on values and character with the kids. And I just couldn't be more proud to call him my friend and a colleague all these years. So thank you, Joe. And of course, I do some recognition to a group of people that I think are underappreciated by all of us, but who I just thoroughly enjoyed over the years, and that's the media. And James Barone is here, and James Yotis is here, and they're both Boston Red Sox fans, which I think is just terrific. even though James Yotis, for at least 25 years of my career, thought I was Pete Schock, the legendary, and I never corrected him because I can't fill Pete Schock's basketball shoes. And so Pete Schock is also a Hall of Famer and just a legendary coach. So every time I'd see James Yotis, he'd say, "Hey, Pete," and I'd say, "Hey, James, how you doing?" You know, so I figured, what the heck? I finally corrected him one day. I said, it was at the state tennis tournament, and I said, "You really think Pete Schock would be at the state tennis tournament?" And, yeah, I guess not. That probably wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. But anyway, these guys do a terrific, we don't realize what a terrific job our media does, both in Albuquerque and Santa Fe, in promoting our kids. I mean, it's incredible. You go to most big cities and high school sports isn't even a byline. And these guys do just a terrific job of promoting. Chella and I have, 30 or 40 scrapbooks at home for all the years. I don't know what we're going to end up doing with them. Kids, you should be getting ready to accept that in the will, whether you want it or not. But anyway, but no, they do a terrific job, and also some personal friends of mine, and I don't want to slight anybody here because so many of you are personal friends, but two individuals in this room, well, one's in this room and one's not, unfortunately, that have been with me since the beginning, all the way since the beginning of my career, and have just been so instrumental whenever I need a shoulder to cry on or some advice on something that. And one of those people is my good friend. His name is Pat Terrell, and my kids, Leslie and Casey, will remember him. His nickname was Red Man. He was my dorm mate at Notre Dame. Ended up moving here to New Mexico. He was in charge of he was the national director of the associations of social workers, and was the state social worker director here in New Mexico. He died tragically in a car accident about 5 years ago here in Albuquerque. But his nickname, he had this shock of red hair, and his nickname was Red Man, which wouldn't be politically correct these days, but we continue to call him Red Man. So despite some of the looks that we'd get from time to time, but Pat was somebody I definitely wanted to pay tribute to. And the other person is a good friend of mine who just walked in, Ernie Romero. And Ernie, where are you? I saw you come in right here in the blue. And Ernie was a terrific parent of mine at St. Mike's. He's also a St. Mike's grad, and has just been a lifelong friend and just a confidant, and given me some great advice over the years. I want to also thank Sally and once again Gary Tripp for the opportunity to come back, to the NMAA and be able to spend my last 6 years there. It was just a terrific place to be. And all my colleagues there who were just such special people to work with. I really consider them, part of my family. I see Chris and Dusty in the back, and Alyssa, my little tennis buddy there, and AJ Bramlett, the short guy in the back there. I did something dirty to AJ the other day. I just got to tell you real quick. So AJ, as you know, was on the 1990s, was it 97 national championship basketball team at the University of Arizona with Lute Olson. Casey's daughter, Ashley, was going to graduate from Arizona State this coming May, and Ashley is a whirlwind all over campus. Well, Ashley, the U of A was playing ASU, and Ashley was the ASU mascot. What is it called? Sparky? Was that the? Yeah, Sparky. And so, of course, ASU went down to U of A to play a basketball game and beat them with a three-quarter court shot at the buzzer. And Ashley was there as the mascot, so I sent AJ a picture of my granddaughter in her Sparky mascot outfit. And I was glad the last thing he said, I won't tell you what he said in the first part of the text message, but the last part is he said, "I still love you, Joe." So I wouldn't want AJ on my bad side. So that's all I can tell you. I'm sorry to go on for so long, but there were so many people I wanted to recognize. Two of my former teammates, Jim Macias and Jack Ortega, are here. They were part of the legendary St. Mike's 67 team. We won 3 consecutive basketball championships, 67 through 69, and Jim and Jack were both huge parts of that. Undefeated in 67 at 28-0, and so we had big shoes to fill the next 2 years, but we managed to somehow squeak through 2 more state titles thanks to what those guys had established with us. And I was trying to think of just one story that I could share with you guys that would sort of summarize what my career was, which was just an awful lot of hard work and dedication, and an awful lot of sacrifice on my family's part. And I kept coming back to the same story, and it's kind of, it seems kind of meaningless and kind of trivial, but for some reason it just seemed to grab exactly what the experience was of being an athletic director back in the mid-'80s and the challenges that we faced. And so right near the end of the 80s, and this was another reason I didn't like Dennis Casados in these days, but is Capitol High was getting ready to open up, and the enrollment at St. Michael's was dropping fast. And we were actually below 300 students at the time, and just not being able to afford to run the school, needing desperately to figure out ways to increase enrollment. And the brothers, I think it was my second year as an athletic director, the brothers basically came to me and said, we no longer can fund athletics. You're going to have to figure out how to do it on your own. And so I gathered all of our coaches, and we implemented a number of different things that we would do to fundraise and become self-sufficient as an athletic department. And one of the things we did, I had a good friend that started a basketball program at the College of Santa Fe in the early 70s, and they were closing their gymnasium down at the College of Santa Fe, and so we moved that program. It was 50 business people from Santa Fe that come in and play basketball every single day, and I see Josh in the back, and that program is still in existence 50 years from now. From the day it was started, we moved that over. It also became a source of recruitment for us because a lot of the kids of those people that were playing in that program ended up enrolling at St. Michael's, so we increased enrollment as a result of that program, and we were raising about $20,000 a year through that program, and had some fun playing basketball. But Chella and I, we ended up starting we ended up doing a volleyball program, a City League volleyball program on Sundays. And so in those days, basically, I couldn't afford custodial help at the school. I couldn't afford security at the school, so I had a wonderful alumni association. But I was the custodian, and my family was the custodian. And the girls can still remember sweeping gyms and mopping gyms for me and what have you. But every single, this volleyball league was on a Sunday morning, started at 8 o'clock. And so for many, many years, we would... when the game ended on Saturday nights, and we had a game every single Saturday night from November through February, we would have to stay, wait till the crowd cleared out. I'd have to get volunteers, which always included my kids, push bleachers back in, no electronic bleachers. It was handheld. And the crazy, and of course the little ones, Joey and Jessica were little at the time, and probably should have been in bed by 8 o'clock or so, but it was already 10:30 at night when this was happening. They got the big kick out of it because they got to run underneath the bleachers and pick up the change from everybody that dropped stuff out of their pockets while they were cheering for their team during the game. So that was their entertainment. But we'd have to sweep the gym, then mop it because inevitably there'd be Coke spilled, and the St. Mike's Frito pies would be spilled down there. And we'd close it up, and then the next morning, 6 a.m., our little routine was I'd go to Dunkin' Donuts and buy donuts. That was how I fueled my kids with donuts. You know, that was I don't know how they became such good athletes. And then we'd head over to St. Mike's to finish tidying up and set up the volleyball nets for the day. Spend the day at St. Mike's in the volleyball program, go home, and then go back that evening and take the nets down and get ready for everything that happened the next day. And it sort of summarized the hard work, but also the dedication and some of the sacrifice that I know my kids had to make. And we were reminiscing on the way up about so many bus trips where Chella would be on a volleyball trip going to Gallup or to the Hot Springs and have a couple of the kids with her. I'd always have Joey with me. We'd be going to a football game up in Vegas or Raton, and poor little guy I'd be driving the bus, and poor little guy'd be sound asleep in the front of the bus, but you know, somehow we survived, and everybody came out, just doing fantastic. And I'm proud of my daughters and my son. I love their spouses. They got great spouses. They all have athletic backgrounds, and they're raising their kids in a way that is really following in the footsteps of the way we raised our kids. And And it's just turned out well. So last thing, and I'm going to get out of your hair there. You can go watch some basketball, or I know we're going to have a little spread of food in here and a reception. So please feel free to come and go. And we're going to be staying in here and just kind of gathering as a group afterwards. But I wanted to have you meet my granddaughter Shauna. So you can stand up, sweetie. So Shauna's 12. She just got her St. Mike's acceptance letter, Josh. So, but anyway, Shauna is my conscience. And so ever since I retired 4.5 years ago, every time Shauna sees me working on a project, whether it was on the school board at Cello School or for the NMAA, she says, "Pa, you're supposed to be retired." And I'll say, "Shauna, what do you think that means?" I'm just sitting in a rocking chair doing nothing. And she says, she won't even answer my question. "You're supposed to be retired." And so she's really my conscience. And I promised her I'm trying to back off on things and trying to not to take on so many more things and try to play a little more golf and stay healthy and that type of thing. But that she's sort of my guide when it comes to things. But what I wanted her to know, and I'm so proud and pleased that she's here today, because I wanted her to see, just how important it is to continue to be involved as long as you can, and to continue to make a difference in people's lives. The kids that are on that court from Albuquerque Academy right now in Valley, this is their dream to be down there on the court. And the things that Sally does and Dan did for years and all the NMA staff do that makes interscholastic sports so special. And makes the kids that are influenced by interscholastic sports, makes that such a special thing. And just seeing the people in this room that gathered here today, I hope Shauna gives you a little bit more of an idea of why I do what I do. But still be my conscience, still keep backing me off, and that's a good thing. But anyway, thank you guys for a wonderful afternoon. I'll never forget this, and for everybody that's in this room, everyone here means something very special to me.
So that concludes our press conference today, but I wanted to remind everyone that Pete Schock here will be honored. Oh, I'm sorry, Joe will be honored at a banquet this summer here in Albuquerque. The official day and time will be announced at a later date. But on behalf of the NMAA, I want to thank you all for coming, and another big round of applause for the newest member of the NMAA Hall of Fame, Joe Butler. Thank you for coming. Enjoy your day.